Good afternoon and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Michaela and I'm on the webinar technical support team at ERG, which is a contractor supporting this effort. Before we get started, let's review a few housekeeping items. Audio is available for this presentation through your computer's mic and speakers or by telephone. Your call-in number can be found by clicking the upward arrow by the mute/unmute button in the Zoom control panel across the bottom of your screen. After you click the upward arrow, choose Switch to Phone Audio and then follow the instructions provided. All attendees have been muted to minimize background noise, but if you have a question during the presentation, please type it into the Q&A box located in your control panel on the right hand of your screen, and we'll have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please contact us via the Q&A and we will try to troubleshoot the issues. And that's everything for housekeeping, so I will now turn it over to our speakers for today's presentation.
Thanks, Michaela. This is Chen from the Environmental Protection Agency, and I help run the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards program. And Michaela, if we can go to the next slide. I'm happy to be doing this informational webinar with David Constable of the American Chemistry Society. ACS has been and is our partner in this award program. And green chemistry is an important part of EPA's pollution prevention program. Just a quick word about David. He is the science director of the American Chemical Society's Green Chemistry Institute. In that role, he works to catalyze and enable the implementation of green chemistry and engineering throughout the global chemistry enterprise. David has held a variety of industry roles in the energy, environment, safety, and health sectors, focusing on influencing scientists, engineers, and decision makers responsible for chemical research, development, and manufacturing in the chemical, pharmaceutical, and aerospace and defense industries. He has developed a variety of programs, systems, tools, and methodologies that integrate sustainability, life cycle inventory assessment, green chemistry, and green technology activities into existing business processes. Our goal for this webinar is to go over the award criteria and answer any questions that you may have. Please type in your questions as we go through the webinar, and we'll try to address as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. And this is just a quick slide to tell you what we're going to tell you. The Green Chemistry Challenge Awards, as you probably know, is designed to recognize the environmental and economic benefits of developing and using novel green chemistry. Green chemistry can contribute significantly to EPA's effort to promote source reduction. And it is also an opportunity to share the great innovations that you are creating in private sector. Next slide, please. And I'll turn this over to David.
Sure. Thank you for your kind introduction, Chen. The Green Chemistry Challenge Awards really have a very long history with the EPA, beginning in 1996. The Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention co-sponsors the awards with the American Chemical Society Green Chemistry Institute. They have been doing that throughout the duration of the awards. And over the years, 26 years, there's been over 1,800 nominations, and there have been 133 winners. So it's a well-established, curated program, and it's one which captures the interest of industry. So the ACS is very excited to be a part of this program. Next slide, please.
And here are some numbers in terms of the environmental savings that's been achieved by the 133 winning technologies over the years. Well, nearly 1 billion pounds of hazardous chemicals and solvents eliminated, Over 21 billion gallons of water saved and 7.8 billion pounds of carbon dioxide equivalent has been eliminated. As you can see, the winners have accumulated a very impressive environmental benefit from their award-winning green chemistry. And here is a word of advice for you when you're thinking about putting together your nomination is to please make sure that you include the environmental impact of your technology into the nomination so we can actually see and quantify the environmental benefits for your technology. And David?
Next slide. Yeah. So if you know, there have been many different flavors and definitions for green chemistry, but this is the one which the EPA has standardized on for a very long time. And for the purposes of these awards, it's the design of chemical products and processes that reduce or eliminate the use or generation of hazardous substances. So a couple of things that apply more broadly is that it is meant to capture the entire life cycle of a product, a chemical product. So that's from its design, manufacture, use, and ultimate disposal or reuse. And it's really about reducing pollution at its source. So you do that by minimizing or eliminating the use of hazardous chemicals, feedstocks, reagents, solvents, and products. And the distinction there is that end of pipe source reduction is not what's in view here. This is you change your process or you change your chemistry in such a way that it inherently reduces emissions, waste, and uses less mass and energy. That's the scope of the definition. So next slide, please.
I think that one's for you again, David.
I see that. Sorry. So the award categories. So for 2023, again, there are 6 award categories. So focus area 1, greener synthetic pathways. That is how we transform a molecule to make the thing that we want to make. Focus area 2, greener reaction conditions, is really where process chemistry type innovations are featured. And focus area 3, which sort of is the holy grail, I guess, of green chemistry, is really designing new chemical entities, greener chemicals, greener formulations, so on and so forth. In addition to those categories, there are 3 other categories, but each one of these needs to be within that synthetic pathway or reaction condition or chemical. And that is a category for small businesses. This is always a very exciting category for me. We get a lot of innovative companies putting in their nominations. Academics, we'd love to see more from academics with their innovations. And this was originally introduced 6-7 years ago, specific environmental benefit for climate change. And so again, it's does my synthetic pathway reduce climate emissions, climate related emissions, greenhouse gases, that kind of thing. And so we're very excited to see that fits in with administration's goals around climate change and so forth. So those are the categories. Jen? Next slide, please. Is this me again?
Yep.
Yes, it is. To be eligible for award, the nominated technology must meet each of these criteria. So it's a green chemistry technology with a significant chemistry component. And be aware that it's not green engineering. So, you know, mechanical engineering or an electrical engineering, if it doesn't have a significant chemistry component, then it really, you should not submit it. As the bottom line, it really, these awards are meant to focus on chemistry innovations. So source reduction is also a very important aspect of that. You must be an eligible entry, and there's lots of information on the website and in the award description to tell you what that means. You need to have a significant milestone in the development of your particular innovation within the past 5 years. So this actually opens it up to multiple submissions over a number of years. You may continue development. The first time it may not rise to the occasion, but maybe in future years it will. So we always try and encourage people to resubmit if they have a winning innovation. It needs to have a significant US component. Now that doesn't mean that every single aspect needs to be done in the US. It just means, more than 70–80% of it needs to be a significant US component. So that means if an innovation was discovered somewhere in Europe or in Asia or wherever, but all of the rest of it after the initial discovery was worked on in the US, developed and commercialized or whatever, that would be eligible. And it needs to fit within those three focus areas that I mentioned in the previous slide about synthetic pathways, processes, and greener chemicals. Next slide, please. Is this me again?
Yes, sir.
Examples of green chemistry technology. Improve upon any chemical product or process. So again, the idea is that we are trying to avoid adverse impacts to human health and the environment, including all kinds of chemical processes, synthesis, catalysis, reaction conditions, separations, analysis, and monitoring. We can make improvements at any of the stages of the chemical life cycle. We can substitute single improved product or an entire synthetic pathway. I will say that the competition is really tough these days. And the more that you do to change an entire product or change an entire synthetic pathway, the better off you will be. It needs to benefit human health and the environment at any point of the technology's life cycle. It needs to incorporate it. Green chemistry has always been about innovating your way out of the problems that we have in the world. And therefore, the best way to do that kind of innovation is to put it in as early as possible in the design stages of a new product or process. Those kinds of innovations are really very exciting. Employ a significant change in chemistry. So again, you can incorporate green engineering practices, especially around processes. But again, it largely needs to be something that is changed from a chemistry or perspective. And finally, getting back to the definition, the EPA definition of green chemistry is this idea of reducing or eliminating hazardous chemicals and used to clean up environmental contaminants. So note that that's not doing remediation. That is reducing hazardous chemicals that are used in remediation. So there's lots of opportunity there. Next slide, please.
And this one's for me.
Great.
So what is source reduction? So for the purpose of the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards program, EPA defines green chemistry as the use of chemistry for source reduction. And a lot of our work is based on the 1990 Pollution Prevention Act, where the term source reduction, also known as pollution prevention, means any practice that reduces the amount of hazardous substances, pollutants, or contaminants from entering any waste stream or otherwise released into the environment prior to recycling, treatment, or disposal, or reduces the hazard to public health and the environment associated with the release of such substances, pollutants, or contaminants. So we're really trying to get to a point where we can prevent hazardous materials from getting into the environment, and to the degree that we can use green chemistry to address some of those issues is what we're really after in this program. Next slide, please. Oops. I believe that is me. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my slide. There we go. So who are eligible? So companies, individuals, academic institutions, including state and tribal universities and their representatives, nonprofit, not-for-profit organizations, and their representatives are all eligible to apply for this award. However, federal scientists, meaning if you work for, say, a federal department or a national lab, unfortunately, you are not eligible to apply for this award. However, we know that these research projects often have many partners involved, so it doesn't just come from one parent. You can certainly be a partner in the research as long as you are not the main nominee for the award. And David will then review some of the milestones that you have to attain before you can apply for this award.
So a green chemistry technology must have reached a significant milestone. I mentioned that a few slides ago, within the past 5 years. So what does that mean? It means you need to make some kind of critical discovery. You need to publish results, or you need to have a patent application either submitted or approved. You need to think about, or you need to have pilot plant construction underway or already constructed and perhaps done something at a smaller scale. Relevant regulatory review initiated or completed. So as you know, in new chemical entity development, regulatory review is a big hurdle to overcome. So having evidence that you've gotten through that hurdle or about to get through it is really very important. And finally, it's always great to see technology implemented or launched commercially. That's a huge plus. So next slide, please. So is this me too, I think?
Sure.
So significant US component. So I mentioned this a little bit, and I'll just reiterate here. Significant amount of the research, development, or other aspects of technology occurring within the US. So what does that mean? If the only aspect of technology is product sales, the technology may not meet the scope. So again, if all of the R&D and development and demonstration happens in, say, South America, and then you bring it over here to expand your sales territory, that really is not going to be seen as a significant US component. Next slide, please.
Okay, so let's just get into a little bit more about the focus areas. So your nomination must fit within at least one of the 3 following focus areas. So it could be 1, 2, or 3, and we would like you to indicate which ones they might be in your nomination. And that includes greener synthetic pathways, greener reaction conditions, or the design of a greener chemical. And we'll dive into this a little bit next. So focus area 1, greener synthetic pathways. So this is the designing and implementing a novel green pathway to produce either a new or existing chemical substance. And we list some of the synthetic pathway focus areas below. So for example, using a greener feedstock that are innocuous or renewable, using a novel reagent or catalyst, which is, I think, is a pretty rich area based on the last few years' nominations. Use of natural processes such as fermentation or biomimetic synthesis are mass efficient or are convergent synthesis. Next slide, please. Now we go to focus area number 2, greener reaction conditions. This is improving conditions other than the overall design or redesign of a synthesis. Greener analytic methods often fall within this focus area as well. So some of the examples might include replacing hazardous solvents with a solvent that has less impact on human health or the environment. Use solventless reaction conditions and solid state reactions. Use novel process methods that prevent pollution at its source. eliminate energy or material intensive separation and purification steps, improve energy efficiency, including reactions that run closer to ambient conditions, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. And the third focus area is the design of greener chemicals. This focus area involves designing and implementing chemical products that replace more hazardous products. Some examples might include less toxic than current products, inherently safer because they reduce the likelihood or severity of accidents, recyclable or biodegradable after use, and safer for the atmosphere. So for example, a non-ozone depleting product.
So
Next slide. We're on 18 now. David?
Yeah, that's me. So just to recap, there are a total of 6 award categories. There are the 3 focus areas which Chen just went through. And in addition to that, there's the small business, academic, and specific environmental climate change. And you can see the footnote there. I'm not going to read that. But again, a reminder that the small business, the academic, and specific environmental benefit need to be within those 3 focus areas. That's an important criteria. Next slide. So Chen, that's back to you.
Thank you. So what are the selection criteria? So a nominated chemical technology that meets the scope of the program will be judged on how well they meet the following 3 criteria. Number 1 is science and innovation. Number 2 is its impact to human health and environmental benefit. And I would ask you to consider the entire life cycle of the chemistry that you are nominating, showing both the qualitative and the quantitative measures of benefits. And then finally, the applicability and impact of a green chemistry that you're nominating. And I'm sorry, if you can go back to the last slide real quick. And what we really want to see is how your green chemistry is a game changer. Tell us how your green chemistry is better than the current chemistry, and tell us how much the environmental improvements on your green chemistry is making. For example, how many pounds of hazardous materials will your green chemistry eliminate or reduce? And how many gallons of water will it be saving, and so on and so forth. So what we would really like is any kind of measurable differences that you can help us capture. Now let's go to the next slide. Just a couple of major deadlines and other things to remind you. So the award nominations are due by December the 9th. So our goal is not to ruin all of your holidays leading up to New Year's, but maybe just one. So you can get everything done before the Christmas holiday rolls around. There is no application fee. So there's no upfront cost for you except for the time that you might invest in putting together the nomination packet. We don't have a standard entry form, but nominations must meet certain requirements or we will reject your nomination. And in the nomination package that is available online now, you'll see the required information. And I would suggest for those purposes, you would just follow the order in which we've asked you to provide the information. So that makes it easy for us to make sure that you've included all the information that we need. And one little hint for those who are thinking about whether you should nominate more than one technology, we would say you must submit separate standalone nominations for each technology, but multiple applications of the same general technology are more likely to win an award if you can combine them in a single nomination. So think about how different or related they are. If they are truly standalones, we would say multiples. If they are somehow related together, we would say perhaps package them together as one big nomination. Next slide, please. And here is, oops, sorry, little malfunction on my slides here. Give me 1 second. So the nomination packet is available online. If you go to the link that is highlighted in blue in the slides, and you must submit the nomination packet by email to greenchemistry@epa.gov. And please include the primary sponsor's name in the file name. And you may want to submit your nomination as a PDF file to minimize the possible reading errors, or, you know, in case there's any clerical errors on anyone's part. And what we try to do is, once we received your nomination, we will send you a confirmation email just to let you know that we have received your nomination. And if you don't get that confirmation, please call or email us just to, you know, just to make sure that we have actually received it. We usually try to get back with you within at least a week, and most likely much shorter time, to confirm that we received your nomination. But if you encounter any problems submitting your nominations, please feel free to reach out to us at greenchemistry.epa@epa.gov, or at the phone number that's listed right there on the slide. And next slide, please. All right. Oops, sorry. There we go. How to apply. So make sure you've addressed all the elements in the award nomination checklist. If your nomination is eligible for the climate change category, please indicate that it is that, in addition to whichever the focus areas may apply. And in the abstract, make sure you address both the novel chemistry and provide quantitative descriptions of the environmental benefits of your technology. We've also, in the last 2 years, raised the word limit from 300 to 500 words. So you can give us a more descriptive and detailed description of your chemistry. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit about the back end. How are these nominations judged? So EPA will conduct an internal screening of all the nominations just to make sure, number one, it is in fact chemistry instead of engineering. And we have had those situations before where it is in fact an engineering product instead of a chemistry product, and those do not qualify. Once that's been done, ACS does the heavy lift by convening a panel of judges. These are experts from different fields of chemistry who will actually look at all the nominations and recommend a series of possible award recipients. And then they will return those back to EPA. And the award nominations will also be subject to EPA's compliance enforcement screening. And I'll say a couple more words about that in a second. But the main point being that EPA is not allowed to recognize any outside parties that may have either a significant recent enforcement issue or maybe an ongoing enforcement activity. So that, you know, we recently have had several companies who had really good green chemistry, but we didn't realize until the very end that they had some enforcement issues and had to disqualify them based on that. So please ensure before you start the nomination process to just double check with your company to make sure there are no recent or anticipate any enforcement actions or significant penalties and permit violations and such. We can try to help you a little bit on trying to determine some of those things. But one of the things that we won't be able to help you with is if there is any ongoing activities, we won't actually know that until we've actually run our own screening, which is more real time. But if there's anything that's happened in the past, that we should be able to help you figure that out relatively quickly. And let's go to the next slide. So typically, once we've identified the winners, we will have a nice ceremony. And I think for 2023, we're hoping to do it in the fall of 2023 at a distinguished but to be identified location in Washington, D.C. It'll typically include the award ceremony itself, as well as keynote speeches and the ceremony. And this past year, we were able to recognize many of the winners from 2019, 2020, and 2021 at the ACS Green Chemistry and Engineering Conference. And that was a really good time. We were able to bring everyone together, given how COVID kind of made live meetings sort of a thing in the past. But this year, we were able to get everyone together, and that was great to be able to provide folks with some recognition from their peers. And we hope to do that again in 2023, as long as COVID doesn't reemerge as an issue. And let's go to the last slide. So here's our contact information, should you have any additional questions. And I know there's already some questions rolling in. I'll just try to address one or two of the questions that's been posted. We are recording this webinar, including the slides, so we will make that available online for folks, I think, as soon as we can turn that around, probably in about 2 weeks' time. So we'll make that available as soon as that is available. Let's see.
Would you like me to answer the question from Guy?
Sure.
Paper straw. So Guy asks that they came up with a paper straw that's better than a plastic straw, and questioning whether or not that's eligible. So what I would say about this is that the awards, once again, focus on chemistry innovations. So if your straw, a lot of things like this have coatings to them. If there is a coating that you're using around the straw that's a new chemical or a new way of getting durable water and stain resistance, but is biodegradable, that would be probably a significant innovation. If it's just that you're, using, say, nanocellulose and you've managed to make an impermeable barrier, but it's still biodegradable because it's cellulose, that's really not so much chemistry, and it would be a harder thing to judge, as chemistry by the judges. So yeah, not much more I can say about that. I should probably take the one from Dr. Ramachandran.
Yes,
about,
please.
Significant U.S. component. So this is a judgment call, Dr. Ramachandran. If your innovation, as I mentioned, is something that was discovered in India, and you've done a little bit of testing that it has the, technical efficacy that you're desiring, and then you ship it over to the United States and you develop a U.S. patent, you get that through this for initial stages of regulatory approval, and then you develop it and you commercialize it in the U.S. That probably would count as, a significant U.S. component. But if a majority of what I just said in terms of, it's an Indian patent and only, and you're just looking to get regulatory approval for it for in India, and then send it over to the US, that's unlikely to qualify. So it really is a matter of timing and whether or not you have significant US components to to your nomination.
I can tackle the next few, I think, David.
Sure.
The primary sponsor question. Primary sponsor is typically the company or the group that did the research that is doing the nomination. So I'm trying to think of a good example.
What happens many times is, say you're in an R&D organization within a company, and you might say that the primary sponsor is your VP of research and development, and you're actually the individual who's doing the nomination. That's typically how people handle that.
Okay. And the next one is the word limitation for the entire nomination or for just the abstract. That's just for the abstract.
It's 4 pages, right, for a total?
Yeah, whatever 500 words turns out to be, depending on how much graphics you want to add into your write-up.
Yeah, my point was the abstract is 500 words, and
Yeah.
but the total nomination package is 4 pages.
Yeah.
So it's going to be more than 500 words.
Let's see. Are past winners available online? Yes, they are. If you go to epa.gov/green chemistry, you'll see 4 sort of sub windows, and then there's an award winner window on the upper right hand side that will show you the past winners over the last 27 years and a short write-up for each, well, a short and a long write-up for each one of them, just to give you an idea of what they've done in the past. Ida asks, do we have to commercialize the technology? I think this is more for you, David, but I'll take a shot at it. The technology does not have to be commercialized at the point of your nomination. It is one way to show that you have made significant progress in the technology, however. So it can be commercialized, but it doesn't have to be.
So say you have a process that is on the critical path to commercialization, and you've got your validation batches demonstrated, and you've done a lot of pre-commercialization activity to show that you can do your particular process or product at some significant scale. So not a pilot plant scale, for example. That's very helpful. You can do pilot scale as well. But again, it should be, more than a kilo type thing. You want it to be something that demonstrates that this is a technology that will work and be successful in the marketplace.
I'll take the next one from Hans. We do not have a runner-up award. I'm sorry. You got to be the top dog or you don't get recognized. Maybe David could address Norel's question.
Yeah, Norel, that's a gray area. So producing cleaning and disinfecting solutions using electrolyzed water, which, as you point out, is not new technology. You generate those solutions using our patented salt-free process, which keeps salt out of the final solutions. You may want to try and put that as a process innovation. Yeah, it's going to be a gray area. It's going to be difficult to exactly where to put that. It really depends on how you pitch it, because you're not really creating a new chemical entity. It's probably better to think about it as a process innovation.
And Oscar has 2 sort of related questions. Is the application length limited to a certain amount? And also there's a later one that says considering formatting for graphics, citation, and in-text references. I think the abstract is limited to 500 words. And I think the page limit, I can't remember exactly. I think David, you said 4 pages, but it may stretch a little bit longer than that. I would check the nomination packet to see what the limitations are in there. And let me see if I can
How many
address
years?
Han's question. For how many years can one apply for the same product or technology? We have had applicants who tried for multiple years, sometimes with and sometimes without additional changes over the years. I don't think there's any particular limit to the number of years you can try.
We have had
I really have to
people,
say about that.
yeah, submit them for many years. And I would say there's a strategy to this. I would say that if you're continuing to build out the technology or commercialize it, that gives you a little bit more runway to resubmit. But if it's the same thing, you may want to consider not submitting it after, say, 3 cycles, because it's just not going to be seen as competitive.
And David, can you address Oscar's
Oscar's
next question about the 5-year time period?
That's what I was just trying to address, the 5-year time period.
Okay.
Or maybe it's another question that I'm not seeing here.
He says, is the 5-year time period of testing required, or could it be a novel project that was developed in 2021, but does fulfill the focus
Oh,
area?
sorry. No, you don't need a 5-year time period of testing. I mean, you again have to show that it's a valid innovation and hit one of those significant milestones. So again, if you've submitted that for a patent, or you've submitted for regulatory approval or something like that, that's really what's necessary.
I will address the next one. Does the Green Chemistry Award include some greens? Unfortunately, there are no dollars associated with winning. This is purely for the glory of public recognition that you have done some excellent green chemistry work. And the final question we have right now is, if the technology has won some other awards from other agencies, will it be qualified for this award application? If so, should we highlight the other awards? We have seen applications like that in the past. So you are definitely more than welcome to apply, and also mention that you've won recognition from other places. But just keep in mind that our focus is more specific on green chemistry and how green is it, and how novel is it. So depending on why you won the other awards, that may or may not be relevant to this award.
If I could expand on that a little bit. So say
Sure.
you won an award from DOE because it reduced energy. You would have to reduce that energy from a change in the chemical process, or redoing the route, say going from 8 steps to 2, and in the process reduced energy. But it's a focus on the chemistry innovation as opposed to the energy. You would certainly be well advised to mention how you've saved energy, because that gets into greenhouse gas emissions, and that's an environmental benefit. But that would be, again, a desire to focus on the chemistry of the innovation.
And Han has another question. Just launching a new product is enough, for showing tons of sales consider a better for the award? I would say either one is okay, right?
Yes.
That just shows it's been commercialized. It doesn't necessarily have to have a ton of sales.
Yeah, again, the emphasis here is not on the commercial success. The emphasis is on the chemistry innovation, and how that chemistry innovation has resulted in a significant environmental benefit, the reduction or elimination of hazardous materials or whatever. So while it's okay to highlight your commercial success, again, judges will be evaluating this based on the science of what it is that you've done.
All right. We have no other questions. Let's just do a quick going once, going twice. Any last questions before we end this webinar? As I mentioned before, we will turn this recording around and post it on our website as soon as we can. Usually it takes about a couple of weeks before we do that. And we will be also happy to just send everyone a quick note, those who've registered for the webinar, that the recording has been posted, so you'll know to go back and rewatch us perform one more time if you like. And the slides will be there as well. If you have any questions at all, feel free to contact us at the emails on this last slide or by phone. Either way will be great. With that, thank you so much for participating. Let me just check. I just saw one question pop up. It just says, does commercial success really prove that technology has improved? Not necessarily, I guess. That's really the question. So we are more interested in the chemistry than we are in commercial success. But it just shows that it's gone through the basic regulatory and other approvals for that product.
Yeah, in other words, we sometimes get submissions that emphasize the commercial success more than the chemistry. And all I'm saying is that commercial success, yes, does prove the technology, but it isn't the only proof of the technology. And that's the way it is.
Yeah. And I'll just say we've had some really, really good judges who have a really good sense of the state of chemistry right now. So they really help us identify, like, this is a path-breaking chemistry that we're looking at versus this is just a little nudge along the long road of a particular chemistry. So it really helps us to identify those that are new and exciting. And I think last time they actually mentioned, like, this is Nobel level chemistry versus something else. So I think we have the caliber of folks who are helping us look at these chemistries to say, like, what is like super good chemistry versus just sort of incremental improvements. I think that's the phrase I was trying to think of. And we are looking for those real path-breaking green chemistries that can make a big difference in the world.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I would also say that, we typically recruit judges with exposure to, so some of them are academics, but about 50% of them are from industry. So you have a group of judges who are very savvy about the commercial aspects of the technologies.
All right, with that, I'm going to going once, going twice. Any more? I'm going to knock it down. Thank you so much for participating. Look for our email coming to you in a couple of weeks once we have everything posted online. And thank you for participating today. And thanks, David, for joining me again for, I think this is the 4th year in a row.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care and good luck.
Bye.
Bye.